welcome Catherine later to our Zoom meeting. Catherine leads the human resources for Delta Dental of Virginia, a company based in Roanoke. Kathy is an advocate for advancing women in the workplace, and she leads the Delta Dental Women at Work group and is a frequent speaker and mentor on this topic. She is also a member of the Women Corporate Directors with the mission of advancing women on corporate board and is a volunteer for the Asha Foundation, which supports a shelter for girls and young women in India. Today's topic is the employee experience now is more important than ever. And she will be taking us through the session. This will be a 1-hour session and the last 30 minutes will be for question and answers. So over to you, Kathy. Welcome once again.
Oh, thank you so much. And good evening to you all. Thank you for spending your Saturday evening with me for those in India. And for others, thank you for spending your Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon. I'm so pleased to be here. Thanks to the best of the HR Forum. You all do such good work and bring forward such good programming. Thanks to Bijolal for putting this together. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you, Kathy.
Okay, sorry.
We have muted everybody and
okay.
Only your voice can be heard. So
very good.
Very less response.
Sure. All right. Thank you so much. Would you like me to go ahead?
Yes, please.
Okay, yes. Very good. Well, first, let me start by asking, how are you? These are such unprecedented times around the world. I hope you and your families are staying well and safe, and we will all navigate through these challenging times from a work and an HR standpoint, as well as from a personal standpoint. So I'd like to share with you my new normal. This is me sitting in my home office. I've been working at home for the past 3 months. And as I'm sure you know, COVID has certainly been quite rampant here in the US. And I know, my heart goes out to those in India, because I do know that there's been a great impact for you all as well. So I would like to start by sharing a story with you. I have spent quite a lot of time working in India, and in particular in Chennai. And so my colleagues and I were working in Chennai and decided to spend the weekend in Kerala, in your beautiful state. So as part of our travels down to Kerala, we decided to take a trip down to the southernmost tip, which you all know quite well, I'm sure, Kanyakumari. And so please excuse me if I haven't pronounced that exactly right. So my colleagues and I got on the tourist boat to travel to that small island where the temple is. And as we got on the boat, we put our life vest on, and the seas were quite rocky. My colleagues and I grabbed the arms of our chairs on the boat. People were quite tightly together on the boat, and we traveled across very bumpy seas. Well, you can imagine how I was feeling and how the others on the boat were feeling. We were nervous about the trip, although it was just a short one. The seas were quite bumpy. We're quite anxious, and on balance, we weren't feeling that well at all. As we got off of the boat and got out onto the island, we saw the beauty of the temple there, just quite lovely. The scenery is so picturesque and lovely. The temple there is quite moving and quite beautiful, as I'm sure you all know. And so then our feelings change, of course, to beauty, happiness, and quite a feeling of well-being. So I share that short story with you to also then give you a quote. The quote is from Maya Angelou, and it goes something like this: "I've learned that people will forget what you say, and they will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." And so as we think about employee experience in the workplace, consider how we make our employees feel by the policies that we set, by the experiences that we provide, by the culture that we offer to our folks in the workplace, and the importance of all of that. So I'd encourage you to keep how we make our employees feel top of mind during this presentation. So I'd like to share with you as we begin some pictures of my team. So I asked my team members to take some selfies of themselves or things that they were doing that made them smile, that made them feel good. And so I'll just take you through sort of a sampling of my team members, and you can see that some are hiking, some are with their children, some are with their pets. Some have used this opportunity to work from home, to go through amazing transformations. This individual here lost 25 pounds while she's been working for us remotely. And that's quite amazing. You can see the new office mate sleeping on the job down there. So my teammates also took time spending with family, celebrating wedding anniversaries, and of course, dogs on Zoom are quite the thing now. So if you consider the employee experience and how it makes us feel, how we make our employees feel, particularly through this challenging time of COVID, social injustice, and all the other concerns that we have in front of us as HR leaders. So employee experience, what is that? Is it just a buzzword? Is it something that's going to be with us to stay? You know, to be honest, I am still really trying to determine that myself. And so as you consider employee experience, the way I've looked at it quite broadly. I've looked at employee experience to be the period of time when someone is going through recruitment, going through onboarding for our respective companies, the career development stage, the performance stage, through the time when the individual leaves the organization. The employee experience is quite broad, and we as HR leaders have the opportunity to influence that across the whole experience life cycle. Particularly as folks might be working virtually, working from home, focusing on the employee experience is now more important than ever. So I'd like to share with you a study conducted by Future Workplace. So this is an organization that focuses on what organizations are going to look like, obviously, in the future. So Future Workplaces asked business leaders and HR leaders, actually in early 2020, what they would be focused on during this year, not knowing that the pandemic was in front of us. So these leaders ranked placing a greater focus on employee experience as the highest priority they would be focused on in 2020. And I would say, if you were to survey this group of leaders, that percentage would increase even higher, because it's so important during this time to make sure that we're engaged with our folks, that we're checking on them and how they're feeling, and all the other items that are surrounding the work environment today. And so, you know, I would invite this group also to send in chat questions or send in chat comments. My wondering is, does this surprise you that employee experience is at the top of the list? So please do feel free to send in your chats. You can see here, this is another way to look at employee experience. This was put together by a fellow by the name of Josh Burson. He's a thought leader working for Deloitte, and that he's thought about employee experience as this grid here. Employee experience, including meaningful work, hands-on management, and I'd like to, in this category, call your attention to leadership and the importance of leadership development in the employee experience. And we'll talk more, certainly. productive environment. A recognition of a rich culture is so critically important in this category. Growth opportunities, focusing in here on career growth in many paths. This is so important, as you all know, and certainly as we've discovered, to make sure that as folks enter your organization, that you're developing them from day one, that they have an opportunity to learn and develop and grow in their careers, and also have promotional opportunities and other opportunities to continue to enhance their skills and grow with the organization. Trust and leadership, critically important, and health and well-being. You know, we've found very recently with the pandemic that our team members are really quite focused on, as you can imagine, their own personal wellness, their own personal health and well-being. And these are all items that we need to sort of support and focus on as we work through these challenging times. So why does employee experience matter more than ever? Well, you know, during this period of time that we're in right now, individuals are working 3 more hours each day. I'm wondering if that's a surprise to you. I'm wondering if this group finds themselves, you know, in that situation. I know I do. A recent survey conducted by SHRM shows that 41% of workers feel burnt out, and 23% report feeling depressed. And so all the more reason why we need to give attention and focus to employee experience. Workers are increasingly looking for ways to develop emotional connection, especially during this time of social distancing. So if you consider the pictures of my team members as we started this conversation, so important to keep in touch, whether the situation is remote work, whether the situation is working in person and social distancing. There are feelings of isolation likely that exist with folks. So COVID-19, this is a unique opportunity for us as HR leaders to step in and lead, to partner with the CEO and other leaders of your organization to help navigate these challenging times. You know, I would say as an HR leader, I really have had an opportunity to lead very closely with the CEO, to advise him on how our people are feeling, to advise him on business continuity, to advise him on people issues in this truly, you know, uncharted territory that we have. We're all learning, and HR is in this very unique position to have the pulse on the organization and to help the company lead and be successful during this time. COVID, the response that our organizations make and have related to COVID will, I believe, define them for years to come. You know, questions to ask ourselves are, you know, have we supported our people? Have we checked in on the people? Have we looked at and considered business continuity? Have we looked at company performance? Have we been leaning in to help business leaders navigate the people side of this pandemic? And so how does this COVID response facilitate our employees' need for all the things that we just looked at, the thought leadership that Josh Burson provided on a couple slides earlier, meaningful work, mission and purpose, development opportunities for our folks during this time, psychological and physical support, career growth and mobility, and safety and security. Which of these items becomes more important during this time period? Which of these items will be more important, say, at the tail end of 2020 or 2021? I would say that these categories will continue to shift and change based on current events and where the world is certainly at that time. So lessons for reimagining employee experience through the lens of your employees. You know, this is so critically important. How we make our employees feel during this time, the example that I gave. Also, I'd like to kind of rise up and kind of put a spotlight on employee experience as a business initiative that requires cross-functional involvement of key stakeholders. This employee experience idea right now during COVID-19 is not just, you know, an HR obligation. This is something that extends throughout the whole leadership team. It extends throughout the whole business in order to make this successful. And, you know, the whole organization will really need to focus on moving very quickly, bringing in agile methods to make sure that we're providing just the right experience for our folks. So, you know, I know this group is, you know, full of HR expertise, and I'm certain that you as HR practitioners, as HR leaders, are doing many of these best practices in terms of employee experience. And, you know, in terms of starting, I would suggest that as we look at employee experience, that we make sure that we're aligned with the business, that we're aligned with current business need, and that we're aligned with future business need. So questions that we should be asking ourselves are, you know, how can employee experience impact increased profits for the business? How can creating a great employee experience impact, you know, customer satisfaction? How can we impact revenue by providing a really great employee experience across all of those, across all of those pillars? We really need to think about this quite broadly and bring this sort of value proposition forward as we talk about employee experience. I think so often it's easy to sort of dismiss this concept of employee experience as being sort of a squishy concept and hard to measure. But, you know, I really believe that it's an imperative on us that we do make sure that we have an employee experience that meets all the pillars that you just saw, that is aligned with the business, and also is in alignment with your company's mission, vision, and values. It is kind of who we are, sort of the DNA. And of course, measuring our progress, bringing the measures and metrics forward to produce an ROI for employee experience. So speaking of vision, mission, and values, this is our company's vision. We're a dental insurance company. So we're in the financial services sector. We do have a focus on improving oral health. We do quite a lot of community work and quite a lot of support for charitable initiatives around improving oral health. So our vision is more smiles and healthier people. This is who we are as a company, and we really try to live that vision. These are our values. Our values, the first is believe. We believe everyone deserves a healthy smile. Learn. We pursue knowledge and embrace new ideas. Solve. We go beyond identifying problems to seek solutions. Respect, of course, and grow. These are our values, and there is a strong linkage. In fact, it's kind of the DNA of our organization between our vision and our values and employee experience. And let me give you an example of that. Sorry. I apologize. I think I'm missing a couple slides here. But let me just try to talk through this. So our values are linked very much to our employee experience. So for example, learn. We support our employees in their learning through clearly identifying a career path and a career progression, and making sure that we communicate that to each of our team members and making sure that they have the proper learning in place, be it online learning, be it coursework, be it other types of learning to support that. That's part of our employee experience, and it lines up very well with our values. Respect. We certainly respect individuals, and now, you know, in the world today, we have a lot of issues, particularly in the US, around racial injustice. This is something that is critically important to us. It's important to us as an organization to ensure that we have a very rich, diverse culture that we celebrate. And so one of our employee experience strategies around that is to arrange various work groups. Sometimes they're known as affinity groups. So I'll give you a couple examples of that. We have a group called Women at Work, an affinity group where women get together and learn together. They, you know, celebrate together, and they have a community that they have much in common with that binds them together, you know, at our workplace. We have a group for young professionals. We have a group that's focused on public speaking and improving that. We also have a very new group. It's a community garden group that we've started. It's very much of a, pardon the pun, a grassroots sort of effort among our team members who wanted to do this. So we have created a garden that our employees planted vegetables in. And the purpose of the garden is twofold. One, to provide vegetables, fresh, healthy food, you know, to our workforce that they can take home. It's not a lot, but you know, it's available to them, and also it's an opportunity for those to work together, to have some fun together, and to work in a you know, a group of coworkers to accomplish this garden. I'll show you a picture of it. It's called Green Acres, and it's been really, really quite fun, and it is very much in support of our values and in support of our mission and vision. We also have had a focus, as I mentioned, on employee experience around well-being, around physical, you know, healthful well-being, and also around mental health. So during this, you know, time of crisis, we have intentionally reached out to our folks to provide additional services through our employee assistance program. We've provided online learning to our folks. We've offered yoga online. We've also offered some stress relieving techniques to help support just these kind of stress that folks are under, you know, currently. And there is a very good alignment then back to our values. So how do you measure employee experience? Now, I'm sure this group with the expertise here has done a lot of measurement, you know, in terms of either experience or in terms of other measures. So when I thought about, well, exactly how do I show the value of all the work that we're doing around employee experience, I identified 5 different metrics that we're focused on. So certainly employee productivity. You know, if you remember the pillars that we looked at that spanned employee experience, certainly experience can be measured through increased productivity. How can we measure that? Well, we can measure through improved performance. If we're still measuring performance scores, certainly that's one way. Many organizations have shifted away from that annual performance evaluation, but if, you know, that still continues, you know, certainly that's another measure. Employee wellness, health and wellness certainly are measures. If you're doing health and wellness assessments on site, and if you're getting aggregated health and wellness data about your workforce, there is a way to measure before and after, and the impact of your employee experience activities around health and wellness. Certainly also, if you're paying for any employee benefits, that's a way to measure in terms of claims cost and whether they're increasing or decreasing. Employee engagement is certainly a very strong measure. Our organization conducts very regular pulse surveys, and I'm sure this group conducts those also. We're asking our team members questions, set of questions that are recurring questions, so that we can track that to see if we're improving over a period of time. And I'll give you an example of one of the questions that we always ask our team members, and that is, do you plan to work here 1 year from now? That's a key measure, and we track that. We also track a number of other recurring questions to measure engagement. Employee retention, certainly some of the measures that we're using around employee retention are more traditional measures of employee turnover. Our organization takes turnover one step further so that we're focusing on something called regrettable turnover, asking ourselves the question, are we keeping the top talent that we want and need to keep? Or are we losing them in a short period of time? We have a metrics arrangement that we look at to score that regrettable turnover calculation. We're looking at things within that measure of regrettable turnover, like performance, certainly, relationship with their supervisor, connection that the employee has to our to our employee experience and participation in that, and other factors to see if we're able to keep the top talent. And certainly we were tracking exit interviews and data coming out of that, although at the point that someone exits your organization, if they're top talent, then it's very difficult to make a change for that person. You can use the data, obviously, for the future if you need to course correct around those who are exiting your organization. And certainly employee recruitment. You can measure the employee experience around recruitment. Things like, have you made the right hire? And so within that question, our organization looks at, if they are leaving within a 3 to 6 month period, then something's not working quite right with that, employment selection. So we pay attention to, how quickly someone might leave. We're also looking at the more traditional time to fill and fit measures there within employee recruitment. All of this is data that supports employee experience. And as we've, as I've pointed out throughout the presentation, employee experience really is quite important, particularly, during this time. So now I'd love to hear any questions that you might have. Please feel free to share. And I'd love to engage with this group on a more conversational basis around employee experience. Questions? Let's see. Questions? Let's see. Anu, I think you might have to help me with the chat. Let's see. So I have a question from Sajina. Please excuse me if I haven't pronounced that quite right. Can you explain more about employee engagement once more, was the question. So, it's interesting. This whole concept of employee experience is somewhat of a new concept. And I would say employee engagement is one element of employee experience. Employee experience is the broader item, which encompasses all the pillars that we saw earlier. Employee engagement is just one aspect of that, and that is, you know, often measured by, as I mentioned, our pulse surveys. You know, how much do individuals participate? How much do individuals, you know, participate in workplace programs? Are they engaged in learning activities that are offered, and other items? I hope that helped. So another question, can you please brief on types of employee experiences? So let me go up to, and I've gotten another one. What are tools to identify the employee experience in their life cycle? Let me go up to the chart that we looked at earlier. Let's take a look at this chart again. You know, as I mentioned, the employee experience concept is really quite broad, and it spans from before hire to after they've left your organization. So it's really quite broad, and it's somewhat of a new concept within the workplace, or it's a new way to reference, is what I would say. So employee experience makes up basically the whole life cycle of work. So meaningful work, making sure that your folks have work that they enjoy doing, that has purpose, that they feel a reward from in doing that work. The next kind of category would be hands-on management, making sure that our folks are getting coaching and feedback that they need, making sure that they have goals that are set clearly for them. If they're on a leadership track, making sure that they are being developed to become the leaders of the future. Working within a productive environment. So do we have things like a flexible work environment? What about our culture? What about open, flexible workspaces and a diverse culture? So that's another pillar of the employee experience. Growth. So you would look at this as learning and growth. Do they have a clear career path that's mapped out for them? Can they be mobile? Do they see upward mobility or cross-organization mobility available? Do they have a development plan for themselves? Have they worked with their manager to develop a plan? And can they see that path for themselves? Another pillar would be trust and leadership, making sure that our leaders are connected to mission and purpose. Remember, from our organization, we have a clear mission, we have a clear vision, we have a clear purpose, and making sure that all of your employees, all of your team members are connected to that and can see the purpose of the organization, making sure that we as leaders are investing in our people and that there's a trust level there. Is there transparent communication with our team members, and are we inspiring them? That's a tough one. And you know, I would say as an organization, if we've reached the level of inspiration across our whole team, I think we really have, you know, accomplished quite a lot. And then the last pillar would be health and well-being, especially during this time of a pandemic. Do our team members feel safe and secure? Do they have opportunities to live a healthy lifestyle? What about fitness opportunities that we might be providing to them? So for example, our organization has an on-site gym. Now, I realize that not all organizations can offer that. There might be limitations of facility. Your workforce might be, very spread out. But if there's some opportunity to support employees in fitness activity, that certainly contributes to employee experience. Financial well-being, and last but certainly not least, psychological wellness and support, especially during these very uncertain times. So all of that makes up the employee experience, and employee engagement plugs into this matrix here. I hope that helped. Any other questions that you might have? I'm trying to get to the chat. Let's see. Anu, you might need to assist me in the chat if you don't mind.
Sure, I'll just check for other questions.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Sure thing. Do you, I guess a question that I would have for the group is, do you look at your workforce in this holistic way of employee experience? Do you agree with this concept? There we go. Yes. Very good. And how are you navigating, to the group, how are you navigating through kind of the current COVID crisis? Are you impacted significantly, just in a small way? What is the impact that you're seeing in your workplaces related to COVID?
There's been a quite large impact, especially in the Indian job market. Everybody
Yes.
is worried because there is no answer to many of the questions they have. There's a lot of uncertainty. But we are trying to navigate through these times together so that we can come out successfully. So we are utilizing this time to learn and to understand how we can have better ideas that we can implement in our own organization. So we are learning from top leaders, and we're trying to understand how best we can utilize this time rather than focusing on the pandemic, how we can learn and come out. And I would like to ask all our participants to please share your questions through the chat box.
Sure.
We have a few more minutes.
Mm-hmm. So I do see a question here about how to bring the best employee experience in this pandemic situation. Can you please share some best practices? So, it's tough. Our workforce is at this point almost all working in a virtual situation. So we have tried to engage our workforce through Zoom and through other means. And so let me give you some examples. We have run a series of contests where we've asked our employees to, for example, take selfies of themselves doing something, and the something changes from week to week. So for example, last week, I believe we asked our folks to take a selfie of themselves taking a walk, and they submitted the selfies in. We did a drawing and awarded some prizes And the prizes were subscriptions to, for example, mobile apps focused on health and wellness. We've given them subscription, paid by the company, paid subscriptions to things like Audible, where they can listen to, podcast or, other online ways to listen to music or ways to learn, ways to listen to an Audible book and things like that, with the idea that they can do these things while they're out taking a walk or going for a run or, doing other things that will help their kind of physical well-being. From a leadership standpoint, our leaders have conducted virtual, what I would call coffee talks or tea talks. And this is a time when the leaders would just get on a Zoom chat with, a cup of tea or coffee and just engage in a conversation with our workforce. As you can imagine, that's a very, very big Zoom call, but it's been another way for our workforce to connect with leaders, to also see them in more of I guess, an authentic or a human way in this challenging time, to see that the leader is sort of a real person, just like the rest of us. So, for example, one of our leaders had his dog with him on this coffee talk so that our employees could get to know them on a more sort of personal basis. They told some personal stories to have a greater connection with our workforce. Other strategies that we have taken, we've brought in our, as I mentioned, our employee assistance program to conduct a series of mindfulness courses via Zoom, again, to our workforce. And we've offered them as a kind of lunch and learn. So it's an optional, voluntary sort of thing where the employee assistance program, who are licensed counselors, coach and teach our workforce on ways to manage stress, ways to deal with the crisis, and just basically helping with, the mental health issues that, that folks clearly have during this very frightening time. So we've used Zoom quite a lot to engage our workforce. There are, many other things that we've done. We've sent packages home to our folks for food coupons to, to use as needed. We've provided support and education around financial well-being, because we found that, if our employee, was employed with us, they might have a family member, a spouse, a significant other, who maybe lost their job as a result of, high unemployment and pressures on companies. So, how do they manage their finances? We've provided strategies where employees can get a loan from us as an organization. We've also set up an employee relief fund for folks who have just very extreme circumstances where they have such financial pressure that they might have to, move out of their current home. They might have to move in with a family member. So we've developed, in that case, an employee relief fund for those very extreme emergency situations to help and, support them with that. That's just one of many. And I am happy to talk with anyone who wants to have a private chat with me to just get into more detail around the strategies that we've taken to support our workforce in the many different ways during this time. Sure thing.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Any more questions? Do we have any more questions? No, I don't see see any more questions. So we have come to the end of this session. Thank you, Catherine, for sharing this highly educational information with us. You've provided us with a number of ideas, and all of our listeners and me can try some of these in our respective companies. It's been a very engaging session. I want to thank Bijulal for taking the effort and coordinating the session. And before we close, I would like all of us to sit back and think about the things that we can do differently at our organization. Thank you so much, Catherine. We hope to see you
Yes.
and hear from you again. Have a good evening, everybody. Thank you for your time.
Yes. Goodbye. Thank you so much for